Welcome again to You Made That, a podcast about makers, making, and the things we make, and where their question is always about the inflection. With me as always are Bob Blanford and Rebecca DeGroot. How are you two doing today?
I am great.
Great.
I'm wonderful. Ready to go.
Well, why don't you tell us about being great?
Well, no, it's just it's an interesting time to be alive. All sorts of new developments. Texas is very exciting right now. Haven't been outside in a few days. So a lot of the inside of my house is getting extra attention. So it's really interesting, but yep.
It's probably a good thing you have a good supply of wood on hand.
Yes.
That way you don't have to go out and get anything.
Yes, exactly. No, it's great. I'm all stocked up on all the wood I could possibly need, probably for years, but I mean, there's always more that you want. You know, you always you see that wood or you see somebody else using a piece of wood and you're just like, well, I want that. Or I want something like that. Or you find out that there's a sale on really, really figured maple. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get there first, then everybody else will pick through all the good stuff. But, no.
Kind of like when Rockler gets in a load of walnut crotch.
Yes. Yeah,
I always have to go to the store for that one.
It's nice because I have a warning when they're getting that. I don't get to pick it early because that's not allowed, but I do find out when I'm going to be allowed to pick through the box, and they come in 4x4x4 boxes. Mm-hmm. So it's like I dig to the bottom too. I was like, hey guys, where can I put all this wood? Because you know I'm gonna move it. But no, they're good.
And how are you for glue?
Oh, I counted my CA glue, and unless I have more hiding somewhere, I have 5 unopened bottles of medium CA.
Oh, you're good, yeah.
And 2 opened bottles for sure. I know I'm stocked up on 3 unopened bottles of thin, and that's just the brand that I use primarily. I've got some others stashed away somewhere else, and I've got 4 gallons of Alumilite. So I'm good. I'm set.
4 gallons?
This episode of Hoarders. Oh my goodness.
Well, actually, I think it's about 4 gallons.
You know that stuff has a shelf life, right?
No, I'm going to use it. Believe me.
Okay. And Bob, what are you up to?
You know, interesting weekend. We just got back from a lacrosse tournament, so that was a lot of fun. Team did really well. I haven't had a chance to really be in the shop because literally I just rolled into town about 2.5 hours ago, and for the last 2 hours I've been taking a nap. So,
you lucky man.
This old man is wore out, let me tell you. But things have been going pretty well. I worked on a couple of videos. I've got one out on my main channel, and I got one that'll be going out later tonight for my Patreons, the Patreon-only channel. And that's pretty much all I've had a chance to work on for the shop, unfortunately.
Okay, time out for a second. Is this like a timely show, or is this going to be a drop-in whenever type thing?
I think it's a drop-in whenever.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Well, but with the lacrosse tournament, though, Michael, I'm getting ready to go to. They're going to be weekend after weekend, so that's really a common thing for the family.
Okay.
So, and I'm dropping videos all the time. So should I back that up and redo that segment?
No, that's fine. As long as you're not being specific
I
about
don't mind.
Just saying that you're.
Well, that's why I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure going forward, so I don't ask you anything specific.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that. It's really hard not to talk about actualities, you know. Okay, sorry.
Game on. So how was the lacrosse game? Did the kids do all right?
It was fantastic. We did not win as many as we wanted, but the two that we lost, we lost three actually, but two that we lost were only by a point.
Oh, wow.
The third one that we lost was by a team that was spanking everybody by 8, 9, 10, 11 points at a time. So this team was phenomenal.
Yikes.
So, they really shouldn't have been in our division, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. Sounds like they had a couple ringers on there.
They were well. I'll tell you what happened. It's really simple. The area they come from is a huge lacrosse area, and these girls get a chance to start in grade school. The area that we come from, our girls start in the 8th grade. Well, with the COVID virus that we just went through, right? The 8th grade girls did not get to play even a single game. So they're now 9th graders and eligible for this team. They've joined the team without playing, and our freshmen, who most of which have played in the 8th grade, a few haven't, only got one game last year, or this past year. So our girls are very, very green, and it's tough to compete against teams that have been playing together, since they were in grade school. They're just so well coached and so good, and you have to respect that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and we're better for playing them.
Good. Well, myself, I chose today to go outside in the 90-degree plus heat, 90% humidity, and open up the garage, turn off the air conditioner, and just work. And that lasted all of about 4 hours.
You're glutton for punishment.
Yes, I am. And I'm paying for it tonight. I can already tell. It's going to be one of those nights. So have you guys been watching anything interesting or listening to anything interesting? Bob?
I knew you were going to choose me first. I was getting ready to jump back into my feed. I'm trying to remember what all I watched and listened to. I know I tell you what I listened to that was absolutely fantastic is I listened to 2 episodes of You Made That, and they were incredible on the drive up to. What a great podcast! If you're not listening to it, I strongly encourage you to do so.
It's all in the post-production, baby.
It's all in the post-production, and I tell you what, those guys have it down. And I did watch a couple of revival videos, which you know me, I'm addicted to those right now. It is like I just can't stop watching them. And beyond that, I really didn't get a chance to watch I watched a lot of lacrosse footage. I took a lot of footage at the game, and I've watched a lot of lacrosse footage preparing college videos. It's when your kid plays a sport, one of the things that the colleges want to see when there's a I don't know how deep you want me to get into this. I'll try to keep it.
Oh, you're good.
Not too deep, but stats are taken at every game, and those stats are posted, and college coaches watch those stats. And our area has been known for recruitment of girls who are very good, high-quality lacrosse players. So the coaches are watching the kids, and my daughter has a recruiter that is working for her, and one of the things they want to see is a recruitment video. So at every game, I go and I stand down. She plays attack, and I stand at that end of the field, and I film her, and then between the games, I cut the footage and get all the stand around time, the whistle time, the referee talking, some other girl with the ball. I cut that stuff out, and then I just send them just a quick video of all of the highlights, and then they take them and massage them and make her collegiate video. And the coaches then there were coaches. We have a signal. I wish you guys could see this, but when we go to the game, I hold up my hand, or my wife will hold up my hand and make a letter C with our hand, and we'll hold it up above our head, and that's when we identify a coach. And in the second game yesterday, there were 3 coaches we identified, and 1 coach in the third game. So we're out there giving her the C, and that's when she knows to really turn it on, and not only turn it on, but the other thing is turn off the emotion. When you get the signal that there's a C, you want to be out there, and you want to be the cheerleader for the team. Hey, way to go, Gretchen, way to go, and pump the team up. And if you have a bad shot or a bad moment, just shake it off. When you come off the field and you're going from the field to the car to get a snack or whatever, always have your best behavior on, because those coaches are not only there to watch you play, but they're there to watch you interact, because they want to make sure you're going to be a good fit for their team, and you don't want to get ticked off and throw your stick down and tell some girl, "What? You're a cotton-headed ninny muggins. You shouldn't have missed that shot." You know what I mean? So
watch it now. I'm going to have to beat that out.
I'm sorry. I've got to watch my language, but that's what old Bob's been watching here lately.
Yeah, with how much recruitment goes in like that, it makes me wonder, because a few years ago, there was a video going around of a young lady that was playing soccer at the collegiate level. And her main tactic was to get behind the person that was defending her, grab hold of their ponytail, and throw them to the ground.
Oh, my goodness.
That, I can tell you, that would be a no-no, because last year we had a young lady on our team, and she got what we call juked, right? And what a juke is, it's like in basketball or football. Someone comes running at you, and then they do this little fake move and literally just roll off of you and go right around you. And she got upset and threw her stick down, and two coaches were sitting up right next to my wife and I, and the one coach goes to the other and says, "Hey, mark her off the list. She's done." So attitude like that, illegal maneuvers, things like that, will probably hurt you in the recruiting realm. And that's why if we can identify, and coaches are easy to identify, there's two types of coaches. And I really shouldn't get into this because we have a topic, but you know, you want to be on your best behavior. And it's like when you go for a job interview, you're interviewing, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it is.
And just so everyone knows, we've been kicking around the idea of renaming this podcast to Tangents.
Yeah, because there are so many that happen. And it might actually be more interesting.
How about you, Rebecca?
What was the question?
Have you been watching or listening to anything lately?
Okay. I was like, wait, I don't even know where that one started.
Welcome back to Lacrosse Talk.
Rebecca, if you don't want to know, don't ask.
Tangents and digressions.
Yes.
I've been watching a bit more Nip Tuck. That and Henry and I, every once in a while, we get back into our binging phases. Well, we'll start watching one of our shows that we really, really like, and it was kind of up in the air between The Office, Parks and Recreation, and How I Met Your Mother. But we've already rewatched Parks and Recreation twice and The Office once since the last time we rewatched How I Met Your Mother, so we landed on How I Met Your Mother. So we've been watching that together, and I've been going back and forth by myself on my own time between Nip Tuck and Dexter. So it's been an interesting variety of shows lately.
So I've got a little confession. Of those three shows you just mentioned, I have only watched one. And
Parks
can you
and
guess
Recreation?
which one? Nope.
Oh, The Office?
Nope.
What?
I have only seen How I Met Your Mother.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I think that every maker and woodworker really needs to watch Parks and Recreation just to see Ron Swanson. Mm-hmm. And to see his attitude behind making and creating, and just the determination he has, or just the mindset that he has behind what he does, and certain government affiliation.
When that show came out,
it's interesting.
When that show came out, my wife was pretty much dead set against it because she was just 100% sure all they were going to do is make fun of Indiana. And I don't know if that's true or not, but she just wouldn't have it. Not in our house.
No, not at all. No, not at all. In fact, the main character, or one of the main characters, Leslie Knope, she loves Indiana. Like, her town is everything to her. So it has, there's almost no Indiana bashing in there. They refer to Michigan a few times. I like that a lot. as a Michigander.
The mitten of the country.
It's really good. Mm-hmm. America's high five.
Yeah. Well, as for myself, I have finally gotten around to watching some of Eli Polite's videos on YouTube. Holy crap.
Right?
That dude
The
is out there,
stuff this
isn't he? Very
guy
cool.
does is amazing.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Eli, if you're listening, we'd like to have you as a guest and maybe as a teacher. I don't know, but we'd have to find out what your day rates are. And to think that he does all that as still like a side hustle or a hobby, because he has a main job as what did he say it was? Cabinet tops. He deals in stone cabinet tops. So, wow. There was one piece, it was a hollowed vessel, and the beginning of it said 300 hours of work in 7 minutes. It was like 300 hours in 300. One piece. Wow.
Yeah, it's his work is absolutely insane. Insane.
And with that much time into one piece, it makes me wonder how he prices it. Segue. So guess what today's topic is, everyone? We're talking about how do you price your work?
It's such a great topic.
Yes, and we have 3 fairly distinct views, I think. I hope. If we all say the same thing, this is going to be a real short podcast.
I don't think that'll happen. I think I've got a very artistic view on pricing my work.
And I'm going to word vomit all over.
I think I'm very pragmatic, yeah.
Hey, I've got my sign
I'm
ready.
going to let one of you guys go.
Oh, God, that is so much better than the one I made. And you just whipped that out in like 5 seconds, didn't you?
I did it in pencil first, and then I went over it in marker.
See, what I figured I would just let one of you guys do your pricing pitch, and then when it's my turn, I'll just say ditto.
Or you're just going to do like 101.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, since Bob was waiting on us, let's switch it up and make him go first.
Oh, man, you're killing me.
Psych.
You're killing me, Smalls. No, I'll be honest, I really don't set out to sell my work any longer. If I do have excess, I will sell them, but I don't look for people to sell them to. And the reason why is, but I will tell a quick story, and then I'll tell a while back I was taking orders for pens, and I just got so burnt out because you take someone will say, hey, how much is a pen like this, and they'll point to one of your pens. You'll say, oh, X dollars. They'll say, okay, well, make me one. Okay, great. You'll take the order, and like, well, I want a gold nib, and I want a black top, and I want this color blank, and I want that. And by the time you get done, you're spending more for the parts than it is to make the pen, because unfortunately I'd given the quote already up front. I fell into that trap a few times, and I got a little bit burned out on making things for people under demand, right? Because the expectations were so much higher. Whereas if you make something for someone as a gift, or you make something and someone sees it and they appreciate it and want to buy it, those are two different things. And that's pretty much the only way that I sell things now. And my philosophy on selling is more of a beginner's philosophy. It has changed, and I'll get to that in a second. But the way I begin selling is I would go to pennstate.com, and I hate to plug them. I really hate to. I know how people feel about them. But on their website, if you go and look up, say, a Sierra, which is a Gadsby, it'll tell you a price, a low price, a high selling price, and a mid-range selling price. And I'd always pick that right around the mid-range, and I would add a little bit to it, 10, 15%, whatever, so that I was a little above mid-range, and that's where I would start. And then when I would go to the shows, if the pen sold, I'd bump it up $3, $4, $5 at the next show and sell again. And if it sold well, I'd bump it up until finally sales got kind of flat. Then I would take it back at the next sale to where it was the week before, and I always had a really nice selling point for my pen, right? I never put much more research into it than that. I'm just not that kind of guy. Then after that, as I became a little bit more YouTube known, I guess, I was able just to kind of pick a common price that is a little bit higher. It's more toward the high end, but people kind of appreciated that because they would see a pen that I made and they would know that it was in a video and it would have more value to them, so they'd be willing to pay a little bit more for it. And generally, I don't say, oh, well, I want this. Generally, I'm getting offers, which is okay with me, because if someone is willing to pay that price, then I'm willing to sell it. But I don't get the enjoyment that I used to from doing the sales. I don't want this to be a Debbie Downer moment. I'm just more, I'd rather make them and give them away, or take them apart and remake something out of them than take orders for pens.
Well, it is interesting to see how you adjusted pricing to accommodate your market, because you always have the chance of leaving money on the table if you underprice, and if you overprice and leave it there, then you're missing out on sales. So by adjusting after each show that you went to, it sounds like a good method to use.
It really is, because, you might find certain pens are going to sell better. Where you're at, up in your area, Michael, you might get X dollars for a pen. In my area, I might get X plus N or X minus N, right? I mean, it just depends on what the taste in the area for that type of a accessory item, we'll call it.
All right. And I get the feeling that's probably the end of your stories.
Really, there's not a lot to it. Bob is a simple guy. I try not to do complicated, and that pretty much, that's how I priced right there. And I've told a lot of people, I even did a video on it in the past, but I've told a lot of people, this is where I start. When I was a new turner, this is how I did it, and this is how I learned my market. What sells, what doesn't, and it worked great for me when I was into it. It's just not my thing anymore, right?
All right. Well, let's move on to Rebecca then and get the artist view.
Well, I've got kind of two views on it. So I have my simple work, where it's like things that other people make. So like I've got a giant box of pens that I've actually turned. Surprise, surprise. I don't do it very often, but for whatever reason, I have got probably 8 tubs of pen supplies and pen kits. Just the little shoebox size tubs, all kind of separated by what kind they are, what size barrels, what size bushings they are. And I was wondering, at a certain point, how much I should actually sell those for, because I wasn't familiar with selling them, and going to the little craft fair that's in my area, where you get more and more people coming by your booth saying, well, I could buy 50 of these at Walmart for the same price. I was like, okay, well then you could go to Walmart. So, I mean, you get that at those things all the time. So I just started getting frustrated. I was like, well, maybe I don't want to go to this place anymore, because it has a higher percentage of those type of people, which are really frustrating. And, you don't want to have to deal with them every weekend if you don't have to. So then I was like, well, I'll just sell them online, which you get a wider customer base anyways. But then I had to figure out how much I was going to sell them for. And because I'm not familiar, Henry helped me out. And the internet as a whole helped me out too, sort of. So I like to do this thing when I'm trying to figure out how much something should cost. And I like to ask the general public on Facebook, hey, are there any of you people that do this specific thing? If so, what do you do it for? And I get a lot of responses. Honestly, I probably get hundreds of responses, either in private message or people that are completely willing to share what they have online. And so what I do is I kind of gather up all that information. I take into account my own materials and my own processes before it gets to a final product. Like, let's say I'm making I did this with my skateboard pens. So I've got a selection of skateboard blanks, and I have a bunch of different kits listed on a spreadsheet that Henry made for me, and it's all color coordinated to make it look like a rainbow. And I've got like Slimline, Manhattan, Gatsby, Summit, Cuban, Celtic Twist, Comfort Twist, Pioneer, and a couple more. And then I've got, going the other direction on my spreadsheet, is like, what kind of glue up did I actually do? From basically the simple glue up to the more complex, from vertical, horizontal, diagonal, herringbone, chevron, pinwheel, and kaleidoscope. So lots and lots and lots of different things that go in there. And so I get kind of a basic range, but those are those things that can be easily produced one after another, after another, after another. So that I have an idea of what I could feasibly price it at, and people aren't going to look at me like I'm absolutely insane. But, then there's more things that go into it too, like what kind of finish you put on it. And then if you actually sell it with a nice case. So, like, those can either up or raise or lower the value of the pen when you're actually presenting it to somebody too. So you could sell it for maybe $10, $15 more if you put it in a $1 case, just because of the presentation. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I like to get a gauge if it's not something that I'm familiar with selling. But then there's other things, like I like to go on Etsy and I like to see how much other people are selling their products for on Etsy, and Pinterest. You can find links to how other people are doing. Specifically like the pendants that I do, like the hybrid wood and resin pendants. You can get a pretty good gauge just by going online and looking at similar, or at least reasonably the same quality and the same kind of process. And you can kind of do a happy medium. But then we get into the stuff that's not that generic item that many people all over the world make, and we get into more of the art realm. So I've got these art pieces, and they're sculptural, and they're weird, and there are, in some cases, probably like hundreds of hours into one piece. Mm-hmm. How are you supposed to price that? If you're pricing a small piece based on how other people sell it and how other people price it at based on their own kind of feedback, how the heck are you supposed to price something that you do have 300 hours into? I mean, you can't charge by the hour, because that would be ridiculous, because in some cases you might be working on this thing for an 8-hour day, or you might be working on it 20 minutes here or 5 minutes there, or I don't even know how many minutes in between when I'm waiting for my popcorn to pop, who knows? And it's almost impossible to track that. And then you have so much invested into it, and it's something that can't be compared to what anybody else has ever made. So I think in that case, this is sort of what I do, is you kind of have to give them your F off price. and if you are comfortable waiting and staying with that piece for a while, stand your ground and see if it sells at that price. And if it does, then maybe your F off price wasn't enough. But, I mean, really, at a certain point, you have to know what's going to make you happy as a maker. Well, like Bob was saying, like, he doesn't sell just to sell, right? You make the pieces, and then when you have extra, you sell them. Just like my stuff, I don't make these pieces to sell them. I make them to get them out there into the world and to have them for a little while, and as a learning experience. And if it sells, and I'm hoping that I'm happy with it. Like a recent piece that I had made, I told you guys openly, like, I sold it and I was not happy with how much I sold it for. Just because it was kind of it was sort of a rash decision, like, yeah, I'll take this much for it. And then as soon as I put that number in and submitted it, I was like, oh, dang. Like, I had so many days into this thing, and now I'm going to have to spend days making just the container that it needs to be shipped in. Like, just the box took at least 2 days to make from start to finish. And that's like buying materials for the box and then putting everything together and then making sure that it's all packaged properly so that this piece that I already didn't sell for enough makes it to its new owner after already making it to the gallery and being inspected by them. And so there's like, let's say a week's worth of work into this one piece and the packaging for the piece. and I got maybe what I probably would have asked for as a day rate. So it's one of those things that you have to consider. But then again, if I gave them my, I like to say it, my F-off price, I might still be sitting on that piece for the next, 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm. And just in case anybody's wondering, that's frack off price.
Yeah, definitely.
And she's a big Battlestar Galactica fan.
Yeah. I can see from your perspective too, Rebecca. I mean, that's got to be difficult because, in my case, let's say that I went to a show and I sold my pin for not enough. I have the opportunity to go back and make more pins, and I have the opportunity for improvements based on efficiency. Right? Mm-hmm. I do the same thing over and over. Your piece that you're turning is one off. Rebecca's not going to make a second one that looks just like it. She's going to make something else. So that is a very difficult situation. You know, I've got efficiency on my side.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And going back to that too, like when I do end up selling a piece, I like to put that money directly into savings or right back into my business. So like I know that with the amount that I sold that piece for, that, I mean, granted, it took me a week if you add in making the piece and making the box. After a week of work and a week of emotional distress, I now have that money from that piece that can go back into a new machine or a new tool for my shop. Like I've got an oscillating spindle sander that does not work and it's taking up floor space. And I could literally take the tabletop for that oscillating spindle sander, either fix it or put a brand new, smaller version of an oscillating spindle sander right on top of that one. And just say, I've got another one and eventually I'll fix the old one. So I'm not losing any money. And now I'm investing it back into the shop in a way that's going to make the next piece that I make so much easier to make. So it's one of those things that eventually it is going to save me time, and it's probably going to save me money if I'm valuing my time like I should. But I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. You just have to kind of consider what it's worth to you and if it's going to be worth it to sell for that amount. And that's a really hard number to pick. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. I guess the perspective is and I'm going to throw this out there. With me, it was always, I have a very good full-time job. I love my job. And that's what pays the bills. This for me, when I sold my pins, was to build my shop and to have money for supplies. Is that the way you're going to think you want to continue forward? Is you want to keep your teaching job, but potentially do this as a sideline business? Or are you thinking at some point, I would like to make this my life's work, what I do on a daily basis? Because I think that makes a difference in pricing as well.
I've always... So I work full-time as a high school art teacher. We've mentioned that. And it's getting to a point during the school year, I find myself making a lot less. And I find myself losing my sense of self a little bit when I don't make as often. And so it is a goal of mine that I would like to kind of smooth blend into more of the making rather than teaching. So I'm working my way toward that. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how many years it's going to be and how many different teaching opportunities it's going to end up taking before I am fully invested in kind of this side of what I do. But I know that I'm still going to be teaching. Like, I love it. Right. But if it's going up to Illinois and teaching a 3-day class every month along with the stuff that I'm making at home, like, I'd be able to do that. I'd be fine with that. But yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry. Short answer, yes, I would like the one kind of career to be replaced by more of my like passion and this whole life of making. But I know it's one of those things like people tell me not to quit my day job. And, I hear from all these people not to do it. But I mean, I also hear from all these other makers like, oh yeah, I just quit my day job. Like, it's great. I'm living the life. I was like, I want that. But right now I'm not at a point where I could just give up on my teaching career and just start from scratch. I know that it kind of needs to have that overlap first, and I need to have enough in savings that I can feasibly transition.
I like how you preface that with short answer, because Rebecca, on this show, there are no short answers.
Yeah, I know.
No, that was a wonderful answer. That was a wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. No, it's an interesting place to be in. And I know, even before I started teaching full time, I knew that I wanted to also be a maker. And that's one of the things when they go into teaching and when you're being taught how to be a teacher, they're like, you're not going to have time for anything else. And like I said on previous episodes, you don't tell me what to do. Like you tell me I'm not going to have time, I'm going to make time. Like I've always been determined enough that I can make these things happen. Like, I was working 3 part-time jobs when I was going to college. I did not have a social life. It's not like I was giving that much up by having a full-time job and then spending the rest of my time in my shop. It's like, my social life is online. I don't need to go out to the different crazy things that all these young people are going to and do all these weird activities. That's not what brings me joy. Like, what brings me joy is making and creating. And then if I can... if I can share that with more people, like, even better.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that question came from, is I remember in an earlier, I don't remember if it was an episode or a pre-episode, you mentioning that, both of your parents were artists, right? So, that was my thinking is, would it be your ultimate goal to become an independent artist and to support yourself on your art? And that's kind of where that question evolved from.
And my dad is actually on the same route. Like he goes kind of from job to job based on what makes him happy, and it's always in something kind of maker related, like either a construction job or a machining job. And his goal is the same as mine, is to kind of like have enough coming out of the workspace that you can replace that 9-to-5 with a full-time kind of life hobby, I guess is what you would call it, but something that actually makes you happy and you can continuously do, and you can change up what you're doing without anybody telling you can't do that. Like,
no, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's cool. It kind of runs in the family.
Well, that's never really been my goal. And now we're going to talk about goals. This may be a great topic for a future show, but the objective for me was always to make just enough to be able to purchase my supplies and to not have to hit the family budget, right? Because you don't want to take away from I don't want to buy a new table saw because my kids need to eat this week, right? And that's where I kind of came from. And I don't think I would ever want to do it full time, but I could see myself in retirement, this being a great sideline to kind of buffer the old, Social Security check or whatever is available, if there is anything available when I retire. So, and I think it's great to have goals like that, and I really hope that you're able to meet that goal.
And I mean, like, I kind of look at pricing some of my smaller stuff too in a way, like, if I look at how much I make as a teacher, I split that up into how much I would make a day, and if I could make a small piece worth the same amount that I would make in a day, plus like shipping and boxing prices, then I think I could make it worth it. But that's another thing. Like, do I want to make a small piece every single day? And would I be happy doing that? Because, I mean, I want to throw in one of those big, crazy, outrageous pieces every once in a while, but that might take several weeks to make, and it might take a few years to sell. So I need to get myself to that point where I am producing enough small work that sells really easily, and then able to kind of sprinkle in time to spend on those larger pieces that really do make me happy. And I think if I can price my work in a way that I can do that, and I can do that full time, I think that's where I would be content.
Right.
Yeah.
See, Michael, I told you, this is the Jimmy DiResta of our podcast. Because if you watch Jimmy's videos, he's making his ice picks, he's making his vegetable, he's doing all of these little side projects that he's selling, and then he's going off making his larger projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the trick is, and I'm going to throw this out there, then I'm going to stop because I know Michael needs to talk, and he's got a great.
I don't need to.
He's got some great info from, and. I'm sorry, but it's multiple streams of income is what you really have got to go after. You need 4 or 5 things that are bringing in a little bit of money that adds up to a reasonable sum. So if one of those 4 or 5 things goes belly up, then you can focus on the others, or maybe look to add a new revenue stream. So, and I think that's great. I love the idea, with your Etsy store of the earrings that you're making, and that's your ice pick, right? And then your big projects that you make, like Gnaw and the other projects, those are your. I don't want to pick a specific project of Jimmy's, but we've all seen how he's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The difference is people come to him and say, Mr. DiResta, I want you to make this for me, versus you're using your creativity to build something that Rebecca envisions in her mind. And then you're putting it out there into the art community, which is a little different, and selling it. And I think that's wonderful. So I definitely look forward to watching you the next couple of years. Don't let that sound creepy, but I'm looking forward to watching your career progress over the next couple of years, and hopefully seeing you attain more of this goal of becoming an independent, self-funded artist. So, and I'll stop with that.
Yeah, no, I think it'll happen. I'm determined to make it happen, so it will. It's just a matter of when.
And my comment on yours is, you're probably going to have, for your larger pieces, you're going to have 2 different types of pricing structure. You're going to have either a commissioned piece or an artistic piece. And on your commission pieces, you're going to have to be able to estimate up front how long it's going to take, what kind of materials it's going to take. So you really need to come up with a day rate that encompasses all that. If I get paid this much in a day, it covers my labor, it covers my materials, it covers my consumables for that day. So somebody can come to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I have a day rate when it comes to like demonstrating and teaching workshops for the different clubs that I demonstrate with. And I just put out into the world again, I was asking for opinions again, and I got back kind of a good range of how much, if I was going to go to someone's shop and teach them wood turning, like hands-on, one-on-one, and I got another kind of rate for that, and that was more of an hourly, which honestly, if I think about it, and if we do enough of this, it could end up being closer to my full demo day rate. But I mean, one-on-one is going to be a little bit different, so I'm kind of taking that into account. But I mean, I think it's going to be an entirely different thing that I'll have to figure out there. I don't think that I can put the same day rate on one thing as I can on something completely different. But at the same time, it's like I have to value my time as a maker. I am not doing this for exposure. I hate that so much. Like, nobody else gets paid in exposure, and nobody else is expected to be paid in exposure. And it's one of those things that artists get, or like even makers get, like, oh yeah, your name's going to be all over the place. It's like, that doesn't put food on my table though. So I'm going to have to figure out kind of a new day rate if it is down to commission work, but commission work, I don't think I can. It's going to take a while before I'll give in to that, because until I haven't, like, honestly, I won't. Like, right now I want to do things that make me happy, or just make a bunch of stuff that I know is going to sell. I don't want somebody else controlling the decisions that I'm making,
Don't
commission
forget,
steals your creativity. Yeah.
Don't forget people like Michelangelo, Da Vinci. They all did commissioned work, and even that commissioned work is amazing.
Yeah, it is. But did they really enjoy it?
Pays the bills, keeps them alive.
It does. Okay, all right. Well, it did anyways.
Okay.
Okay, Michael.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Get ready for some word vomit from Mike.
Yes! Got my sign ready.
All right.
I need to color it.
So, what does Mike do for a living? Mike estimates. I work for a metal stamper, and customers come to me with their designs, and I tell them how much it's going to cost for tooling, gauging, and piece price. The big one in that being the piece price, because they want to know how much they're going to be paying. So I've made a career out of pricing things. So there's 3 things that need to be considered when you're pricing something. You have to consider your materials, you have to consider your labor, and we're adding a new word here, you have to consider your overhead. So let's start with overhead. Overhead is the cost that's always going to be there, whether or not you're making anything. So if it's rent or a house payment, electric bill, gas bill, if you use the internet in your shop, you can include that. All of your monthly bills need to go into your overhead. So that becomes one big pool. Now, you ask, okay, how do I apply that to, say, an hourly rate? You first need to decide how many available hours you have, say, in a year to put towards making. So for me, I think it came out, if I did decide to do this as a real side hustle and work 4 or 5 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, I could put in about 700 hours a year. So you divide the, make sure I'm saying this right, because you went dollars per, so you take your total cost, fixed cost, and divide that by the available hours. So you come up with $1 per hour charge for your overhead. And there's more that goes into figuring out how much of your rent, electric bill, and whatnot go towards your overhead rate. The way I figured it is I took the total square footage of my house and figured up a percentage per square foot. Then I took the square feet of my shop and applied that rate per the number of square feet that I had. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So you're basically figuring out what fraction of your house is the workspace.
Yes.
Okay.
And then what fraction of the total monthly bills you can apply to that space.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it actually comes out to a small number. It's smaller than you would think it would. My overhead rate is, I think, somewhere between $2 and $4 an hour.
Oh, man.
Well, but that's because I have a 102 square foot workshop.
Okay. So if you have a 2-stall garage, a lathe room, and then you do a lot of work in other areas of the house, it would probably be a lot larger.
Yes. Yes, it would.
Okay.
So, and another thing you want to include in your overhead is the cost of your equipment. Mm-hmm. So say this year your lathe dies. How much would it cost you to replace that lathe? And you do that for all of your major equipment. Mm-hmm. And you figure out, I have so many hours available. If I lost everything, it would cost me this much. So I charge dollars per hour for the equipment. And you lump that back into your overhead. And I'll preface this all also by saying I have a video out on YouTube that talks about this in depth and might be a little more cohesive. I'll put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can watch that as well. And I have a spreadsheet that I put together that is available for download from Google Drive.
That's what I was going to ask you. I am not good at making spreadsheets, but I'm really good at following them. If it's kind of like how many square feet is your house? Plug it in here. How many this is your this? Plug it in here. How much would it cost to do that? Plug it in there. And that's what you have?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, can our viewers access that for free, or do you charge a small amount to give that
I do
to
not
them?
charge for that. That one I give out for free.
Wow, that is very generous.
I'm a generous kind of guy.
But donations will not be turned down.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
So then the next thing for overhead is consumables. And for that, you have to guess. How much glue do you think you're going to go through in a year? How much tape are you going to go through? Anything that has to be replaced on a semi-regular basis, more than just annually. You figure up that cost and then divide it by your number of hours, and you have another addition into your overhead cost. So once you take all of those costs and come up with your eventual overhead, that takes care of 1/3 of your price. Now the next is an easy one, the cost of materials. Now for materials, you just need to decide how much profit do you want to make on the materials that go into the product. And usually a good way to think about it is double the cost of your material. That way you make enough to pay for what you have and have enough to get more. And doubling it would be a max. Typically, I think I go about somewhere between 25 and 50% of the cost of materials, depending on how exotic it is. Last is your actual hours that you put into making something. And there's two ways you can approach this. Say for the more artistic side, you can say either, have a day rate or charge the actual number of hours you put into the piece. That would mean you have to decide on what your hourly rate is. So in either one of those instances, you have to decide either how much you want to make per day or how much you want to make per hour on a given day. I lost my train of thought now.
Now, can I ask a question?
Sure.
About hourly versus daily? Would you, if you were doing hourly, would you say that you're only going to work like an 8-hour day? Or whatever number of hours you would normally work on a given project, and that would be basically whatever number of hours you worked is that amount, I guess. Okay, I guess what I'm saying is if you worked a full day but you were charging hourly, would it come out to the same amount as if you were just charging a day rate?
Theoretically, it could.
Okay.
It depends on if you're, like I said earlier, on the artistic side, on a day rate, you might want to just make your day rate include the cost of your materials. That way you're covering your consumables, your whatever you're making this thing out of. Unless it's like a large piece, like if you're making a 20-foot conference table out of live edge wood, then you might want to have a separate column for actual cost of materials.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say then is if you do go, say, with an hourly rate, you may also want to estimate how much time it takes you to do something. So for me, it was real easy. Mainly I make pens. So I could say it takes me 20 minutes per tube to turn it, sand it, and finish it. So if I've got a two-tube pen, then I've spent 40 minutes towards making that. So that would then be multiplied by my hourly rate. Now, somebody who's just starting in pen making, isn't going to be able to do that in 20 minutes. They also aren't going to be able to charge as much as I would in an hourly rate. So say, for example, somebody who's just starting in the hobby may want to start around $20, $25 an hour. But once you get, let's say, accomplished, and to where you know that you're at a higher functioning level of turning, you could be charging anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour. Now, some people like to do just materials times 3. But that doesn't always work, because how much do you think you would make off of a slimline pen at materials times 3?
Not very much.
Even if you used an exotic wood, you're still going to be making less than $10.
Mm-hmm.
And most people have, they call the slimline their entry-level pen, and they just have a base price that they charge for those. Mine is between $25 and $30 per pen, depending on the wood. But once you get into the more, quote-unquote, extravagant pens, and you get into the higher-priced kits, you could actually overprice a pen because of how much the materials cost. There's a kit out there that's made out of solid sterling silver, and the kit itself is almost $200.
Oh my gosh.
So, you pair that with an exotic wood, then you're talking about a $600 pen, a $600 kit pen. And I do not know many people out there that are going to pay $600 for a kit pen. Mm-hmm. Regardless of it being out of sterling silver, because it's still a kit. It's a mass-produced. It's not a one-off. So you'd be really lucky to get $600 for one of those.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So materials times 3 can work, but it's not going to work all the time. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you break it down into those 3 groups of pricing, your materials, your overhead, and your labor, you're going to come up with a more accurate cost that's going to give you a better pricing endpoint. Any questions, class?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard it broken down in so many different ways. It's just, like I said, it's hard to follow without that visual. But I've been taking very nice teacher notes. So I was like, okay, what did he say? Oh my gosh. All right. Got to put that down. Got to do that. Got to consider that. And the overhead isn't always something that I consider, because it's not something that I really think of, because my shop is so blended into my house. But I mean, come tax season, and I have to consider that again. And I was like, I have to start thinking of what fraction of my house is actually shop space, and what area of the house I use for living and working. It's one of those things that I only ever really think about once a year, and then I forget to think about it the rest of the year. So it's, and then the time, how do you track your time? Or do you start something and then you figure out what time you started and then you're done with it at the end of the day, or at the end of the time period?
That's one way to do it. I mean, there's several different ways you could track your time. You could have a time clock that you clock in and out of. You could start a timer on your cell phone, and hit it when you start, hit it when you stop, and that's how many hours you've spent on something. I don't do a lot of artistic pieces, so I don't have much experience in that. I'm more on the pen side, so I just figure it by tube.
And that was the comment I made earlier about Rebecca's is really difficult to ascertain that, because it's a one-off piece and she spends hours and hours and hours making it perfect, whereas you and I on the pen side, we have efficiency on our side. You can do it in 20 minutes because as you've gotten better and figured out better ways, we can really shave that time that it takes to make it. And there's where we can make our product more competitive and, do better at pricing. So that is a great point, but it's a tricky. That's
Bob.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Was the pun intended on that?
Evidently not, because I missed the pun and went woo, right over my head. So please,
you were shaving something
please enlighten
off.
me. Shaving something? Oh no, that was not meant to be a pun. But that's a good one. Yeah, but making shavings, right? Yeah. Literally, that went right over my head, man. That was not intended. I was trying to have a serious moment.
Oh, see, that was going to be your dad joke.
No. Trust me, I've got a terrible, terrible dad joke. It's going to make everybody go, ooh, boo. So,
no,
my kids hated it anyway.
Oh my God. Well, that means it's good, right? That's a good one.
Yeah.
Has to be. That has to be.
Dad jokes aren't any good unless the kids go boo.
Right. No, but it is tricky with timing the work that I do. I've got 2 examples of this. One that I actually have been trying to figure out how much it takes for me to make a little mushroom, like one of the mushrooms that I make. And I was sitting on my couch, and I have the door open, and I have like a couple box fans pushing the air past me and then out the door. So of course I'm boiling, and I'm sitting there watching Dexter, and I'm doing the wood burning on the bottom of the mushroom, and I'm trying to figure out how long it takes because I had never timed it. So I set my timer, and I found out that for this hardness of wood and this size mushroom, I would burn, well, first of all, I already know I would burn approximately 256 lines into the bottom of the mushrooms to give it the gills that I make. And it took about half an hour for one mushroom cap. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't include turning the mushroom itself, sanding the mushroom, finishing after the fact, and that's still just the cap. Like, that has nothing to do with the stem, or carving the stem if it's going to be curved, or finishing the stem, assembling the 2 pieces together, signing the work. It's like just that one component of that one piece of that one mushroom takes half an hour. And I'm sitting there, and I spent 2 days burning mushroom caps, just sitting on the couch with a bunch of fans, and the dogs just like melted on the ground all over. And like, I can see how the money for those mushrooms has got to go up, because I didn't think that it took that long. And now I'm realizing that. But then on the other hand, I said I had 2. I've got one piece, and it's also mushroom related. It's got 11 mushrooms, 4 legs, 4 body pieces that are all kind of like, they start at the bottom and then they kind of close as they move toward the top, and they're all kind of nested inside each other. And that thing I have been working on for close to 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of those things where I've run into problems. I've been experimenting with it. I get caught up with other things. I get distracted. But it's been an on and off, ongoing project for close to 3 years. So there's no way for me to track how long that has taken me or how many hours it's been. It's going to be one of those pieces that I have to give them my true F-off price for that thing to leave, because it's been with me for so long, and I don't think I could bear to let that thing go for less than I let the black piece go strain.
Well, this actually, since you say this has been an experimental piece and a learning piece, is it something you actually think you would put a price on and put it up for sale? Because there's like a couple of pieces that you saved from college that you've never put a price on and never tried to sell them. I'm sure you've had them in shows, but not for sale, correct?
Right. Yeah, I've had those early pieces in shows, and a couple of them have won some awards, and they've been these pieces that have actually brought money in because of the shows that they go into. But at the same time, they were my very early pieces, and they have a lot of flaws. And I know that if I were to remake one of these pieces in a similar style, they wouldn't have those flaws. It would be almost a complete design change, but while keeping a lot of those aesthetic components to it. But this piece, I am making it to make that piece, because I have this idea in my head, and it just needs to come to completion. Like, honestly, if I set my mind to it, I could finish this thing this week if I really, really tried and if I focused. The problem is I'm probably going to run into some roadblocks, and I'm not ready to deal with those roadblocks yet. Like, there's a lot of stewing that needs to happen on the problems that will inevitably happen. And one of the parts of this thing, like I said, the body has 4 different parts, and that's not including the mushrooms or the legs or the pieces that come out of the body. That's just the body pieces. One of them I have to completely remake because it was going fine, and then I realized it wasn't going fine, and there wasn't going to be an easy way to solve that problem, except for if I completely remake that piece. But that's got to be kind of taken into consideration too. And then one of those 4 pieces I already had to remake because I dropped it and it shattered it. So it's like it was the top piece. It was done. The finish on it was perfect. Everything was great. And then I dropped it on the cement. And it was like, it's the edges of these things are taken out to a fine kind of point. So around the opening was just this frail edge, and it broke it all to bits. So it's one of those things, terrible. Like, I stare at it every once in a while. I still have it. It's one of those things that I look at from time to time, and I was like, I'm going to finish you. I'm going to do something with you. I need to just make a piece out of all my broken pieces. Out of all my failures. Wouldn't that be interesting? Then I could sell that one for some outrageous price and be like, yeah, that one's worth that one. I'll be happy with the money.
That one you could call failures and disappointments.
Yeah.
So that'd be a great challenge. You know, they always have the challenges. You could have like a screw ups and scrap bin challenge, right?
Yes.
Where you take something you screwed up or.
Yeah. And I always like to have a failure shelf that I keep in my shop to kind of just to remind me of where I've messed up and how I've improved and like grown from those mistakes.
That's my display case.
Huh?
That's my display case. What are you talking about? Failures. That's my whole life. That's my display case. You know, everything I have in there is a wonderful failure. First in learning, right?
Right.
So
first attempt in learning, I think is that.
So let's say you over the course of this next year you finish that piece, and now you have a piece that you have expanded your abilities on, you've learned from. If you were to go back and remake that piece, make some changes to it, make it another piece, but in the style of that one, your time on that's going to be cut down considerably. Yes? Okay. Because I wanted to pull you towards this thing that I keep seeing on Facebook. It's something that some makers hang up at their booth. The reason you're paying the price you are is because you're paying for the hours that I've put in for practice and for the mistakes that I've made and learned from. So you're paying for my experience, not just the piece.
Exactly. So, like you're paying for my 6 years in art school and then 6 years teaching art and practicing since then. And then all of that time before, I mean, I think I talked about it in a previous episode, like I've been drawing and creating since I could hold a pencil. Did I ever tell you what I did to my dad's desk?
No.
Do you want to hear a little story?
Sure.
We do.
Of young artist Rebecca.
It's time for story time with Rebecca.
So, young Rebecca, young, innocent, carefree Rebecca, waiting patiently for Dad to come home. Dad comes home, goes back to the office area and sees his desk and sees this lovely drawing in Sharpie on the side of his desk of this adorable little girl in a style very very reminiscent to what young Rebecca has been drawing all over everything for now probably months of, it's very recognizably my style. So, my dad finds me wherever I was hiding. Rebecca. Yes? Did you draw this on my desk? No! And he says I was probably only 3 or 4 years old at the time. And of course it was me. It was definitely me. Nobody else in the house would have done anything like that. I got into all sorts of art-related shenanigans. I have more stories I will tell you eventually. Some of them having to do with crayons, others with melted clay. I'll get into that later. But my dad, being the amazing person that he is, didn't try to get rid of it, didn't try to wash it off, didn't make me try to get rid of it. He ended up leaving the desk when he moved down to Kentucky from Michigan when I was like a freshman in high school or whenever that was. But before he left, he ended up taking a saw and cutting that picture out of his desk and taking the picture with him. And he's got it sitting up on display in his wood shop to this day. And I don't know where we got into that, but I have a very supportive artistic family that just, yeah, it's great. It's a great place to be, and they're great people to have.
That is amazing. I caught one of my boys with a green crayon drawing behind the couch, between the coffee table and the couch one time, and my wife come out and we were kind of looking at each other. I said, "Stand over there, son." So I made him stand beside it. I took his photo and then I painted over the wall. So I got this great photo. I mean, how do you get mad at? I mean, he was the same way. He was a young 2 or 3 years old like you, and he was expressing himself.
Yeah.
So I didn't get mad at him. I have a great photo that will come out at his wedding, right?
Right.
Budding young artist, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So that is awesome that your dad kept that.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Every time I go down to Kentucky, or up to Kentucky, I get to go see it. It's really nice.
That is awesome.
But like I said, I've got a lot of art-related shenanigan stories.
And we'll have plenty of time for those to come out.
Oh, that's perfect. I wish you guys could see what we're seeing. We just got a glimpse of the photo that Rebecca drew on the side of her father's desk, and it was absolutely incredible.
An early Rebecca original.
when this show goes live, we'll have to put that on Instagram.
I absolutely will.
Oh, what a great dad. What a great dad. And speaking of dads, how about some dad jokes?
Dad jokes.
Two segues in one show.
Oh, man. We're getting good at this.
I know. So, Rebecca, let's start with yours.
Well, did you ever hear about the dyslexic zombie? He only eats Brian's.
Oh. Terrible. Terrible. Oh, well, now I may have to change up my joke because you reminded me of one. But,
I was going to say, did I pick the same one?
No. Bob, let's have yours.
So, if a cow doesn't produce milk, is it a milk dud or an utter failure?
Oh, lordy.
So, Mike, does that want to make you change your joke, or are you thinking, nope, now I'm just going to keep mine?
I'm just going to keep my original one.
All right.
Did you hear about the guy who invented knock-knock jokes? He won the Nobel Prize.
Ooh. Oh, that reminds me of you talked about We talked about shows earlier. You didn't watch The Office, but Rebecca, you watched The Office, right?
I actually have my Shroot Farm shirt on.
All right. Well, remember the episode where Michael was trying to ignore Dwight, and he refused to do knock-knock jokes, so Jim turns around and goes, ding dong, and Michael's like, who's there? Do you remember that episode? So, yeah. You'd have to watch the show to really appreciate that. But,
oh, it's such a good show.
Yeah, that was something. I always dreamed of working in a place like that. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Right?
Just total daily mayhem.
Do we have any listener jokes to add in?
Oh.
As a matter of fact, unless one of you guys has some, I actually have another joke from Eddie Stipe.
Oh. Well, let's hear from Eddie.
Why did the Clydesdale... Oh, okay. I'd already started
sorry.
there. Sorry. I jumped right into it. Why did the Clydesdale give the pony a glass of water? Because he was a little horse.
Oh.
I didn't...
No, I was just groaning.
Oh, did you hear about Bruce Lee's vegan brother, Broco Lee?
Broco Lee. Was that a listener joke?
Yes, it's another one from Tim Wadley.
Tim, I got to give Tim props. That was a good one. I like that one. That was a good one.
No, it's good. It's good.
Oh, excuse me. No, you guys aren't boring me. I'm just tired.
Sure,
yeah. That's what they all say. So we are approaching the end of today's show. Bob, would you like to give out your contact information?
Certainly. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at RJBWoodTurner, no spaces. And you can also find me at my shop vlog channel at WhatchaDoinBob.
And Rebecca?
Facebook and YouTube as RebeccaDeGroot. Instagram at Rebecca_DeGroot. My website, RebeccaDeGroot.com. And Etsy, if you want to see what I actually have for sale, RebeccaDeGrootStudio, no spaces.
What happens if they put in the spaces?
Nothing comes up.
Oh, okay. And for me, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are all Lost River Pens. And my website where I sell labelcast blanks is www.lostriverpens.com. And does anybody have anything else for today's show before we sign off?
I don't think so.
That I can think of.
Okay. Well, then that's it for our show today. Thank you all again for listening. We really appreciate it. If you are on iTunes, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. It really does help us get noticed. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so it downloads as soon as it's available. You don't want to miss an episode and be stuck in traffic without us. Thanks all again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
We really aren't crazy. Yeah, we are.